Hey everyone, so this is just kind of like a fun video. This is like for me to sort of flex my intellectual chops, I guess, because I'm gonna be reading from my debate script that I made for a communications class. And basically, the debate is like whether democracy is overrated or not. And I chose to do the side that said it is overrated. Um, and so it's like probably like 10 to 7 minutes long. But I'm also going to tie in some Bible concepts into it because this is like a ministry channel after all. But without further ado, I'm going to start reading. And there are some slides that go with some of them. I didn't use it for the debate, but I just thought it would go well. All right, here it is. So, for the opening statement, hello everyone. Today we will be affirming the statement that democracy is overrated. To open up, I just wanted to share a quote from a famous villain with you all. It goes like this: I love democracy. That's from Darth Sidious, the main bad guy in Star Wars. Now, let's hear a quick example. Three wolves and a sheep are voting on what is for dinner. Who do you think is going to win the vote in that situation? If more people agree on something, does that make it right? This is the tyranny of the majority that results from democracy. Hitler was elected. You got to throw Hitler in, right? The Soviet Union was a representative democracy. See, I'm very familiar with the Western canon. Trump won the popular vote. See, I know my audience, right? Liberal school, Bay Area. Russia is a direct democracy. So now you have the people who like think they're cultured, right? Now, before you say those are not real democracies, let me remind you of something we just learned recently. It's called the no true Scotsman fallacy. Right, because they're going to say, oh, those aren't real democracies, right? So then what is a democracy at that point? There are no democracies at that point. Um, yeah, so we had a small unit on fallacies, and and that's where that comment comes from. All right, to continue. Do you really think that every government throughout history that wasn't a democracy was bad? That's sort of exposing like modern bias, right? Would you rather live in a broken democracy than a functional alternative form of government? So now I'm planting the seed that like you can have a good government that's not a democracy. To quote a man speaking on the violent revolutions of Europe, whenever I begin hearing people talk about democracy, I know there's going to be bloodshed. Democracy is a justification for endless war. Bad countries are anti-democratic, good countries are pro-democracy. It creates a fake moral high ground which war hawks use to justify endless wars and to benefit from those wars. Right. So now I'm bringing up like thoughts of like the Iraq War, the Afghan War, like all the war on terror wars, basically. Right. Um, so next, do most people know what is best for them? Right? It's a good question because democracy is based on the premise that like you can be an expert on politics just because you have a pulse. Um, so here are some examples of situations where democracy is bad. The classroom, prison, families, and most pertinent to our times, right? Remember, know your audience. Experts in a field versus people who don't know about the field, right? Because it's like the appeal to science, scientism, science falsely so called, as Paul would say, I think. And then I would go on to say, for example, teachers are always outnumbered in their classrooms, so should students be allowed to vote themselves straight A's? In prison, there's always more prisoners than there are warden and guards. Should the prisoners be allowed to vote and free themselves? In families, so let's say there is three kids and two parents, or there's two kids and one parent, maybe. Should the kids be able to vote themselves ice cream for every meal of the day? No. And then the other thing is, should should people who don't know what they're talking about, who outnumber the person who does know what they're talking about, be allowed to vote on if that person is right or not? No. Okay. So monarchs are invested in their country. After all, it is their country. Okay. This isn't an argument for a world government leader. This is just me trying to win the debate. Technocrats are experts in their fields, right? Democratic leaders are just popular. Their only skill is getting elected. Okay, our democracy is stable. Democratic leaders are part-time. They can make decisions for popularity in the short term that harm a nation in the long term. Then, while their successor is cleaning up their mess, they can blame him and continue the cycle, giving the appearance of change with no actual change. Democratic governments are slow to act due to gridlock because too many interests are competing for power. Everyone can relate to that, right? Because everyone likes to think that their side is the right one, so automatically they're like, oh, yeah, that's what they do. Can you really vote in a better leader if every available choice is bad because the system itself is flawed? Democracy relies on manipulation. It incentivizes propaganda because you have to convince people, right, that your side is the best one. A little cat, so I have to squirt him with water. People can and do pull strings behind the scenes to give the appearance of freedom, which leads to people not realizing they are being controlled. Another quote, the best slave is the one who thinks he is free. So, a monarch is trained from birth on how to lead a nation. Most elected officials have 4 years to figure it out. Who will take care of a house better, the person who owns the house or someone who is only staying temporarily, right? So, get them thinking. Because the whole point of the debate is just to say that democracy is overrated, right? So if they agree to that in any aspect, or if it changes one iota in the direction of my favor, then I won. So the extreme success of the most wealthy nations comes from social cohesion due to highly homogeneous societies, such as the Nordic countries, more than any virtues of democracy itself. In this case, democracy is like the spoiled rich kid who doesn't have to work hard because his parents, monarchy in this case, did all the hard work for him. They did all the heavy lifting, and saying the child is successful because he doesn't have to work is an illogical statement. So thank you. That was my opening statement, right? Pretty good. Um, and then what you'll see next is my closing statement, and I added stuff on the fly. Um, and you'll see that it worked out really well. Okay, so now I'm gonna read the closing statement. So basically, these guys, they read out a list of countries that are democracies and how good they are, right? They're all European countries, by the way. So what I said in response, and I wrote this down on the fly. 4 out of 5 of those countries are Nordic. I think he mentioned Denmark, Sweden, Norway, and Finland. I think those are the four. It might have been Iceland and not Denmark. I'm not sure though. But I said 4 out of 5 of those countries are Nordic, and Switzerland is also a homogenous country, right? It's not part of the EU. They don't have the immigration thing going on there. So, but they're trying. So, and then my opponents start talking about Greek philosophy and how the Greeks said all this stuff about democracy, but they didn't really go deep enough. So, because I actually read that stuff, I know what they say. So I wrote, I'm glad our opponents mentioned Greece, because if they had looked into it, they would know that every one of the greatest Greek philosophers, Socrates, Plato, Aristotle, thought it was one of the worst forms of government. Voting is a skill, not a random intuition that people have. And sort of the time-tested, like the old example for why democracy is bad is like a ship captain. So you have a ship captain, right? And then you have a bunch of people off the street who don't know how to run a ship. Why should they tell him how to run his ship? That's kind of the argument. All right. So we really went for the throat with our arguments against democracy, but we did this to raise the bar as high as possible. In the end, we are simply arguing that democracy is overrated. If you now have an opinion of democracy that is even 1 millimeter smaller than it used to be, we won. Our arguments were persuasive, founded in logic and good research. Democracy is not inherently good. It is just a system that some countries use. And now that you know all the arguments against democracy, remember to vote for me for student trustee. I'm all the way at the bottom of the ballot. Thank you for your time. That's because I was running for a student government position to help with my college apps. Um, so now let's bring it to the gospel. All right, so this is why Christians should not, and sorry for the text, but I'll read it. This is why Christians should not put their trust, their faith, and their effort into the government. Um, because we see that in the end times, it's actually the government that hunts Christians. It's the government that turns against God. And I say this a lot. I learned this only this year, I think, or last year. But anti means in place of as well as against. So people assume the Antichrist is going to be obviously against Jesus Christ. He's going to want you to be a tranny, all that stuff. But actually, the Antichrist will, as it says in the Bible, he will basically declare himself God and sit as if in the place of God. Right. So he's actually going to try to imitate God. He's not going to try and go against God, obviously. Jesus or the devil is a deceiver, right? So he's going to deceive people into thinking that the Antichrist is is Jesus. Sorry, mixing up the names. So, Revelation chapter 13, verses 4 to 8. And they worshiped the dragon, which gave power unto the beast, and they worshiped the beast, saying, Who is like unto the beast? Who is able to make war with him? And there was given unto him a mouth speaking great things and blasphemies, and power was given unto him to continue 40 and 2 months. That's 3.5 years. And he opened his mouth in blasphemy against God, to blaspheme his name and his tabernacle, and them that dwell in heaven. And it was given unto him to make war with the saints and to overcome them. And power was given him over all kindreds and tongues and nations. And all that dwell upon the earth shall worship him, whose names are not written in the book of life of the Lamb slain from the foundation of the world. Right? So, how's that Seven Mountain Mandate looking? How's Donald Trump, Charlie Kirkville with Orthodox Catholic mega church Protestantism working out for you, right? It doesn't seem like it's going to work out very well. Um, all right, and so this is another really good one, and I'm really good with like little images, kind of like the right and the left wing or two wings of the same bird. Like I do good with the like little symbols like that. So this is one that I appreciate, these two actually. So in Proverbs, Solomon writes, Turn not to the right hand nor to the left, remove thy foot from evil. Right? And so what do we have in politics? You have a right wing and you have a left wing. And I want to add that there's going to be a fake narrow road also. People don't add that also. But the end times is going to seem like a synthesis, which is what you get from Hegelian dialectic, which is controlled opposition, if you know what that means, or it's just reverse psychology, if you know what that means. So basically, they play the right and the left off of each other. And so the end of it, and I did a short on this, the end result is basically going to be like National Socialism, like Nazism. And I don't mean that in like the textbook way, but what I mean is that National Socialism is nationalism and socialism. And people think that's bad, but technically, actually, it's a good form of government because it's authentic to the people and it supports the people and it's socially conservative, but it's economically liberal. The problem is that National Socialism is not based in scripture. It's based in occultism, basically, Aryan or theosophy, stuff like that. And so that's really the problem that Nazism, and I'm using this term very broadly and not specifically, is going to be the fake narrow road, right? So it's going to be like, oh, the liberals have some good, conservatives have some good, we're going to merge that, right? But it's not good at all if it doesn't center Jesus Christ, the real Jesus Christ, not the Antichrist, which is what the future, again, I'm using that term in a lazy kind of way, the future Nazi type government. So the liberals are kind of right, but they just don't know anything about what they're talking about because they are on crack. Um, so next. That's what Jesus said in Matthew. He said, and I call Matthew 7 the don't judge chapter as a joke, but because that's where you find that annoying verse they take out of context to the rest of the chapter. Enter ye in at the straight gate, for wide is the gate and broad is the way that leadeth to destruction, and many there be which go in thereat. Because straight is the gate and narrow is the way which leadeth unto life, and few there be that find it. Right? So this is more like this is giving like a holistic answer to the don't depart to the left or to the right. And then Jesus is saying that he is the way, the truth, and the life. So Jesus is that narrow road to life. And so if we stick to the commandments of Jesus, we stick because Jesus is God, so he gave the commandments. So we stick to his teachings, to how he walked out the faith, how he walked out the commandments. That is our guarantee of salvation, Calvinists, not just a random, like, you're not going to lose your salvation. Like, seriously, come on, guys. You guys want no effort because you're a bunch of nerds. There's not a Calvinist alive who isn't a dork. All right. And then last but not least at all, when Jesus was questioned by Pontius Pilate asked him, "Are you a king?" Because what you have to realize is in the ancient world, it was a lot different. Like, and this has been talked about on YouTube also, but a Roman comedian or politician, he basically said, well, of course, Jesus did miracles. He grew up in Egypt, and everyone is a magician in Egypt, right? That's what Wesley Huff says. So, or Wesley Huffington, I should say. But basically, like, that's kind of the gist of what the ancient world was like, because they weren't stuck in little box cities where the only magician they saw was the homeless guy on the corner of Market Street. Um, so basically, like, he was actually like, oh, this guy might actually have like a kingdom, and I don't know about it. He could be from underneath the earth, he could be from far off to the east or something, right? So he was like actually questioning him. And another thing about Pontius Pilate, which is really interesting, is if you read the historical accounts of what he was like, he was not like the way he talked to Jesus in the Bible. It's very interesting because Pontius Pilate was described as kind of like a brutal and harsh, um, totalitarian leader, like a total autocrat, merciless, someone who wielded power without really almost like too strongly, like someone who was like careless, not really, but like not really like gentle at all with how he wielded power, a real tyrant. And so what's interesting is in the Bible, when you see him talk to Jesus, we get a totally different Pilate than what we hear about in the rest of history, because Pilate is like basically like scared because he's like, who is this guy? Like, he's not scared of crucifixion. Like, he says he owns a kingdom outside of this world. Like, that's kind of a problem. Like, so it's very interesting, right? Because in the Bible, Pilate is not really painted out to be, he's almost a sympathetic character, really, in the Bible. Um, but in history, he's not sympathetic at all. He's actually removed for being too brutal with the subjects. And I think he either kills himself or he disappears. And, hopefully he got saved. He saw Jesus face to face. Like, that's got to stay in your head. And so, yeah, so that's the thing is, Jesus said, my kingdom is not of this world. If my kingdom were of this world, then my servants would fight that I not be delivered unto the Jews. That's what it says in 1836, the John 1836. And we have to take that same stance is that we are passing through. We are currently living at a bus stop, but we are waiting for the bus to come. Yeah, is it good to tidy up the bus stop a little bit? It is. Is it good? Yeah, absolutely. Be zealous for good works. Be zealous for the law. Be zealous for, holiness, right? Preach the gospel, call people to repentance. All that is 100% true. That's not what I'm talking about. What I'm talking about is getting politically involved, right? Thinking that, oh, hey, if I get elected president or governor, I'm going to fix California or the US. And it's like, the thing is that the whole system is baked in to either corrupt you or to kick you out. In my little election, my student election at a city college in the Bay Area, it was super corrupt. There was literally like a series of hearings for like 2 months or 3 months after the election because the Indians were basically like doing shady stuff. Like, they're not going to say this in the hearings, but what they were really doing is they were cornering like low IQ, mentally unstable people and like kind of getting them to vote like right on the spot for them. But the thing is you can't say that, and there's no law against that. So whatever. I think a lot of them got away with it. But yeah. So of the nine or so positions that were being run for, there was only like one person, I think one or two, who really got the position, who really deserved it. Um, like all the people who I wanted to win lost, except for one girl, and then another girl won a position, or maybe it was a guy, but I voted for the guy. But those two were both okay for that one. But that's just an aside. So think about it. If it's that corrupt at that low level of student government in a city college, where they're all just competing for college apps, clout, basically, to look good to apply to whatever college. There's no secret society, I hope. There's no, there's no blackmail going on, I hope, right? Then think about it. Imagine at the city level. Imagine at the county level. Imagine at the state level. Imagine at the federal level. Imagine at the world government level. Imagine above the world government level, at the people who call the shots for the world government. Like, trust me, there's just no way. There is no way you cannot be corrupt. Like, can you maybe win like a town? Maybe, I mean, maybe, can you maybe be a congressman for like a small state? I don't think so. They all take APAC money. They all take it, so it's hard to believe you can even be a congressman. But maybe at the town level, if your town's like, let's say 50,000 or less, maybe, maybe that's small enough. But it's not a numbers game. It's not about winning political power. It's about winning points with people so they glorify your Father who is in heaven. And this goes back to why you should preach exactly and not do the satanic tactic that fake Christians say, which is, oh, like, I preach always and sometimes with words. It's like, no, you can only preach with words, unless you're writing, whatever. You know what I mean? It's like people don't know why you do good stuff, just like through osmosis. Like, you have to bake in Christ into everything. So, anyway, I hope people like this presentation. I'm going to call it my debate against democracy or something like that. All right. God bless y'all. I hope everyone has a good day. I'm looking for the unmute button or the stop recording button. I sure hope I'm not muted. I'll literally throw a fit if I'm muted. Okay, good. I'm not muted. All right, guys. God bless. Have a good morning.